Mark, most recently, the Canadian government has a few procurement deals with drug companies for a potential COVID-19 vaccine. What do we know about these deals? How many doses is the Canadian government buying? What are they spending? What do we know?
The short answer is we don't know very much. Canada has not been very transparent about much of this at all, unlike other countries. I mean, when the United States has done some deals with some major multinational pharmaceutical companies, we get a sense of the dosage, we get a vague sense of the total dollar amount that's being contributed. That's also the case with the United Kingdom, and has been the case with the European Union. Canada has a vaccine task force. The government has yet to tell us who's on the vaccine task force. Out of the blue, recently we were told that they had signed these deals with Pfizer and another company that Pfizer's working with, and with Moderna, which is a biotech company that's using a state-of-the-art process to try to get to a coronavirus vaccine. So what we know is that initially we knew that Canada had signed a deal with a company called CanSino, which is a Chinese company, may have some Canadians involved in it, and they were going to do clinical trials in Dalhousie, at Dalhousie in Halifax, and that never came to be yet so far. I can talk about that later. But then after that, we had a long pause. Also, we heard about some money that the government was going to give to a company called Medicago, which is based in Quebec. I think it's actually a Japanese company, but again, we didn't know very much in terms of actual supply. That was still very much at the testing stage. So the actual vaccines that we know about are the Pfizer product and the Moderna product, both of which are still in the clinical trial phase, but are believed to be leading candidates to make it through approval in the United States.
You mentioned international supply, and I'm wondering, with respect to cooperation on an international scale, what are we seeing when it comes to this global race for the vaccine?
So I think there's two levels to that, really. I mean, there's the developed country level, where it appears to be an all-out race. The United States has basically gone off, and they have something called BARDA, which is a sort of Defense Department procurement agency, which has been giving money to a whole bunch of multinational companies and others, and biotech companies, to actually help them develop vaccines and treatments for the COVID-19 and for the coronavirus. And then also signing procurement agreements. Britain talked briefly about maybe working through the European Union mechanisms for procurement, notwithstanding Brexit, but then went off on its own and signed a few deals, and European Union has signed some. So it looks like there really is a competition among the developed world countries to sign up. I think that's why Canada was the last sort of major jurisdiction to sign up. I mean, the Europeans had signed up, the United Kingdom had signed up, the United States. So we were really getting to a stage that if we didn't do something soon, we would be left out. And we don't even know at this stage what we've signed up to, because there is some suspicion that Sanofi Pasteur, for instance, will be supplying France first and United States first because of the money they're giving. AstraZeneca has, which is sort of a British, Swedish type company that has got obligations to the United States and also to Britain. So we don't know, even with the announcements that have been made, where Canada fits into any of that. Have we actually signed up a firm agreement? Do we know if we're third in line, fourth in line? Are we going to be first in line? Obviously, a large part of that is how much you're paying for. The second component of international cooperation, which I think is what the Canadian government started out emphasizing, was through the WHO, and they have various different facilities. There's something called COVAD, which is trying to get the vaccines in a way that could be shared among developing countries too, or areas of greatest need. And basically, while a lot of the bigger countries have said that they're interested in being part of that to some extent, they've basically gone off on their own. And even China and Russia, they've sort of been doing their own separate deals with developing countries. China has talked about giving loans to Latin American countries to buy COVID vaccines. There's some vague talk about helping African countries after they've satisfied all their needs in China. So pretty much at this stage, it's every man and woman for him or herself, to be honest, in the vaccine race.
Now, we saw in the past 5 months of this pandemic that there was this potential where the US was going to block N95 respirators to Canada. So, how does, um, given your expertise rather, how does Canada stay ahead of this or stay on top of this?
Well, I mean, what we have to do is we have to do what we just did recently, was to sign some of these agreements. I mean, the truth of the matter is, the countries that are putting more money into the development are probably going to have a greater claim to be first in line. Now, what Canada can do for some of this is, to the extent that we produce some of the raw materials that will be needed, whether it's glass for the vials or some parts plastic for the syringes, or maybe there's some aspect of another part of a treatment, for instance, that might be produced at a facility in Canada, we might be able to say, listen, if you guys don't, if you don't do well by us, we're going to stop exporting some of what you need. So that's about the only leverage point we have at this point, it seems to me. We really are in a stage of every man or woman for herself, as I said.
I think, as with everything, there is a political backdrop. I want to go back to a company that you had mentioned at the start of this conversation, CanSino, which is a Chinese company that Canada had signed a deal with, I guess, back in May, to have the vaccine tested in Canada. Um, Correct me if I am wrong here, Mark. Apparently, it is being held up at customs. What is the narrative playing out here?
So there's a couple things going on there. That was a deal to do clinical trials in Halifax at Dalhousie. There's some suggestion that the Chinese customs authorities have not released the vaccines that would be needed to do the clinical trials in Halifax. What I should say is, there are various stages of clinical trials. There's what's called a stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. That vaccine, from what I understand, had more mixed results at stage 1. And that might very well be that the Chinese, it doesn't seem to be the candidate vaccine that the Chinese are going behind. They are testing other vaccines in other parts of the world, and it may well be that the last thing China would want to have is to have something done in a country like Canada with great fanfare and then have it fail. Because the pharmaceutical industry in China really doesn't have a great track record even within China. So I think, to the extent that the mixed results in phase 1, that might be part of it, as well as it could be the politics of Huawei and Meng Wanzhou. We just don't know for sure. And the last part of it is, in order to do a clinical trial, you need to have kind of a place where there's a large outbreak. And it may well be that Canada's done too good a job uh, to some extent at containing the virus, so that it just isn't the place where you'd really want to go to do a comprehensive clinical trial. We don't know. It could be politics, or it could be any of those other factors as well.